Welcome to Healthy Conversations, sharing the knowledge, experience, stories, and the wisdom of herbalists and other natural healers, with your host, Stephen Horn. Today's guest, Thomas Easley. Hi, and welcome to Healthy Conversations. I have with me again my friend and colleague, Thomas Easley, co-author of the book Modern Herbal Dispensatory and founder of the Eclectic School of Herbal Medicine. Thomas is a great clinician with probably more clinical experience than I have because he used to do that pretty much full time. So what we're going to do is talk about a concept from our book, Modern Herbal Dispensatory, because when you read an herb does this or does that or whatever, that doesn't mean that it does the same thing exactly with different dosage forms. It may not act quite the same in a tea as it does in a decoction, as it does in a tincture. So we're going to talk about this. So Thomas, why don't you get started and indicate why understanding dosage forms is so important to clinical practice?
So, thanks for having me, Stephen. I think this is a really fun topic. Herbs work because of and by work, we mean herbs have physiological actions that are identifiable and repeatable and observable because of constituents within the plant. And these constituents, act like a symphony to create the overall music that is the story of the plant. But how we prepare herbs changes the chemical constituents or the ratio of chemical constituents. And I guess I should maybe start with the moment we harvest a plant, the chemical constituents start to change. So if you bend over and chew up a plant, you're going to get a different chemical profile than if you cut that plant and bring it to your house and chew it up, or bring it to your house and dry it and chew it up, or bring it to your house and dry it and turn it into a tea or turn it into a tincture. All of these changes in how the plant is harvested or stored or prepared, all of these come through as differences in physiological response because they're changing constituents and ratios of constituents. So maybe an easy example to start with is the difference between doing a infusion and a decoction of aromatic plants. So aromatic plants have these volatile compounds that are heat labile, and when you when you boil aromatic plants, it fills your whole house with lovely smells. But those lovely smells are no longer in the plant, they're in the air. And so it has changed the constituents of the tea, the decoction that you're going to drink. So you can boil peppermint long enough to remove 98, 99% of the taste of peppermint, but you're left with the rich minerals of peppermint. Peppermint is really high in calcium and magnesium. Mm-hmm. And so a decoction of peppermint might be a mineral tonic, but might not do the things that you normally think of peppermint as doing. It might not act as a carminative. It wouldn't increase blood flow to the stomach. It wouldn't impart a sensation of coolness because you've changed the constituents that you're ingesting through preparation methods.
When I first encountered this and didn't understand it at all was when I was first learning about herbs, and I read in this field guide I had, yarrow was the first plant I learned to identify. It said the Native Americans used a hot infusion for colds and fever and a cold decoction for stomach troubles and kidney problems, and they chewed on the fresh leaf to relieve toothache. Now, obviously, the infusion is more aromatic, therefore more diaphoretic, more febrifuge, fever reducing, but the decoction has more of the other minerals and stuff in it that apparently makes it better for the kidneys. And I learned from Matthew Wood that the part that has the anodyne effect is actually the fresh spring leaves have a purple tip, and if you chew on them, you get the same kind of numbing you get when you get clove oil or whatever, which means the dried leaves would have no effect whatsoever. And so you get this thing with some herb books where they say this has been used for this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And you think, okay, well, if I take it in a capsule, it's going to do all those things for me. Not necessarily.
Right.
Because part of it may also depend on how it was prepared and administered. And that's a very important thing that you need to learn when you're doing herbalism. So go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that this is a common issue with ethnobotanical works. If you read indigenous people used a plant and then it lists 20 different ways. What they aren't telling you is that for some of those usages, it was topical. And for other usages, it was fresh, and for other dried, and for other and so this I think makes interpreting the literature a little bit more complicated than it might appear at face value. And I might also say that a lot of more modern herb books tend to uncritically parrot a list of things from previous books. And so you see, even in modern books, things that only apply to topical use, but the author has just kind of repeated that and not going back to the original source and differentiated between preparation types.
I saw that in a major herb company both of us are familiar with, where they took a poultice formula and it was made to be applied topically, and shoved it in a capsule and took it internally, which it isn't going to do the same thing. Right. And you take an eye wash formula that was designed as to make a tea, an infusion to relieve redness and conjunctivitis. You take it internally as a capsule, it is not going to do the same thing. And another thing which you've talked about, like for example with mushrooms, there are some compounds that are alcohol soluble, some that are water soluble, right? And so you're going to get a different preparation with a tincture than you are with decoction, right?
And if you know this, you can leverage that to your advantage. So reishi mushroom has these terpenoids that are relaxing. They're anxiolytic, and terpenoids are not insoluble in decoction, but they're less soluble in decoction than in tincture. So you have to drink cups full of rough, bitter-tasting reishi decoction to feel the relaxing effects. But a couple of milliliters of a tincture that concentrates those terpenoids gives you the relaxing effects at a much lower dose, because the preparation has changed the constituents that are being pulled out. So yeah, I think this is an important part of herbalism, and there's not like one guide. I mean, I think we did a pretty good job in the Modern Herbal Dispensatory of teasing some of this stuff out, but ultimately,
there's so much more we need to do to tease this out, because it's really an important issue, and it's just not being addressed enough to get us to know how to make the most effective preparations for different things with different herbs.
And I think that until we can flesh this out, or other herbalists can flesh this out a lot more, maybe the best recommendation is one that I fully support, which is experiment.
Absolutely.
Make different preparations, take them, see how they feel in your body, write it down, start developing your own materia medica of how plants affect you in different forms.
I watched an interview with David Winston where he says he does this all the time. And I really have a great deal of respect for David Winston and his knowledge, but that's because he is willing to experiment with it.
Yeah.
I might mention another one is the kava lactones in kava kava.
Right.
If you make a tea of kava kava, it's not going to do too much, because kava lactones are not water soluble. You can make a tincture out of it, but I take the kava kava powder, dump it in with some coconut milk,
Right.
and blend it up, let it sit for a while, and then you take some of that coconut milk and add some pineapple juice and make a kava kava pina colada. Yeah, which is really fun. But you're getting it extracted in fat, and so there are
Right.
some things that extract better in fat. Also, like the acetogenins in pawpaw, or fat soluble compounds. Native Americans extracted them through fermentation, which they also did with kava kava. So fermentation is another interesting thing that I would love to, if I sometimes wish I had a clone of myself, like 10 of me, so I could assign, why don't you work on this one, I'll you work on that one. But I would love to experiment with fermentation, because originally a lot of the wines and beers were basically a fermentive extract of various botanicals,
Right.
a way of preserving them.
Yeah, and the preparation process there, the fermentation process is going to change some compounds, there's so much of herbal medicine, especially revolving around different preparations, that modern science has not explored. There's not been this attempt at a systemic study of how plants in all their different forms work. We have lots and lots of throw it in a petri dish and see what happens, but not a lot of how does it actually affect humans. If I had a wish for science, it would be to embrace herbal medicine not as a chemical that you put in a petri dish, but rather as a way to describe embodied experience, to really hone in on how these different preparations change the effects in people.
Yep. Well, great discussion. So everybody, it's very important that you understand that how an herb prepared is going to change the way it works. So it's important to try to find the right way to prepare a plant to get the benefits you're looking for. And you could get some of that information in our book, Modern Herbal Dispensatory. The link to purchase it is in the text below. And also you can check out Thomas's Eclectic School of Herbal Medicine and my website for more information. So thank you for being with us today, Thomas. This was a great presentation. I think something people really, really need to know.
Thanks, Stephen.
You're welcome. Hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to catch future episodes of Healthy Conversations. Help us educate others by sharing this video, and please feel free to share your own thoughts, comments, and questions below. To learn more, check out the links below.